Yep.
And with that being said, Jesse, you want to talk about Alex Jones. Because
Yeah.
there's a guy that's been targeted by the deep state.
Oh, of course, and he's been one of the people exposing the deep state and all these corrupt politicians in the lying corporate media, just like we do. And one of the biggest events that, perpetrate onto the American people that we were lied to about, that we were told to believe one thing when, other things were true, and we were told to believe that it was just terrorists, but it was really our government, was 9/11. And 9/11 was, of course, one of the most important days in our history as a country, because that was a time where a lot of people by choice were giving up their freedom in support of a false sense of security. Everybody knows what happened on 9/11, but there's very few people who were able to put the pieces together, especially before it happened. But one of the people who was able to put all the pieces together was Alex Jones, and I pulled up a video here. This was on July 25th, 2001. A month and a half before 9/11, where Alex Jones predicted 9/11, Osama bin Laden, and all of the other corrupt actors involved. Let's go ahead and check this bad boy out.
Again, I was on television saying that bin Laden's a CIA asset and looks like he'll attack New York. Saying, call Washington, tell them to call off the attack.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad that you could join us today for this Wednesday, July 25th, 2001 broadcast. Tyranny is enveloping the globe, and the United States is a shining jewel the globalists want to bring down, and they will use terrorism as the pretext to get it done. So that's coming up in the second half of the show. Very important information. I'm going to put the call out that you call the White House and tell them, look, we've seen the news stories that you've wanted to blow things up, that you have blown things up, and that you're saying that 4 million of us are going to die and we need martial law and the Associated Press at one of your little drills you had, and that we're aware of who the terrorists are if you pull this. This can stop this Hitlerian Reichstag event. I want to put the toll-free number up for Congress. And I won't want you to believe Alex Jones. I want you to go get these news stories off my website. I want you to call these major newspapers. I want you to find out these statements were true by the White House about preparing for martial law. And I want you to let them know that if there is any terrorism, we know who to blame. The point is, if any terrorism comes, it's from this government. And if there was an outside threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s, running the Mujahideen war, and whose family builds all the military bases over in Saudi Arabia right now, and sits on the board of Iridium Satellite, he's the boogeyman they need in this Orwellian phony system. I want the White House numbers up there now. A big part of this solution, after you research all the government terrorism and check out what I'm saying is true, call the White House and tell them, we know the government's planning terrorism. We know Oklahoma City and World Trade Center was terrorism. We know the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to blow up airliners, Baltimore Sun. If you do it, we're going to blame you because we know who's up to it. Or if you let some terrorist group do it, like the World Trade Center, we know who to blame. And you could save the planet.
Wow.
I'm calling it Operation Expose the Government Terror.
Yep. So there he goes. He pointed out, I don't know how much more clearer he could have said it. The CIA, Osama bin Laden, World Trade Center. To say all of that a month and a half before the attacks took place, it shows that he was on top of it, shows that he was tracking all the information, and nobody was talking about Osama bin Laden until that day. And, there's a couple different ways we could view 9/11. There's two main theories of if you want to say the government was involved in some way, either that Osama bin Laden was a rogue actor, or that, the government was also involved in helping Osama bin Laden and some of these people. When you look at what Osama had to say, following 9/11, he took credit for it, as most terrorists do. ISIS, for example, they take credit for things that they don't actually do just because they want, to have the credit for it. I imagine it was a coordinated effort between CIA, Deep State, and Osama bin Laden. There's lots of possibilities of what could have really happened on that day and the lead up to it, but I think that, I don't care if it's, 22 years later, I still want the truth. I don't care if it's 22 years too late, I still want the truth. And it's just amazing that, Alex Jones was calling it out all that time ago.
Credibility. One of the things that bothered me, living through as a financial professional at the time through the Great Recession, right? So after the housing market crash, is that the first thing everyone should have done is look for the people that called it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there were people that made the calls. There's a movie about The Big Short where someone actually shorted subprime mortgages because they saw this as a potential profit center, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good call on their part. But I mean, there are people that, not for necessarily individual profiting reasons, called why it happened. That gives them credibility. You got to listen to those people. Well, here's a guy that called it, right?
Yeah.
What does he know?
Mm-hmm.
Because Alex is always getting put in this bucket of like conspiracy theorists as if makes him wrong. And the guy's right more than he's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the beauty of the alternative media. Okay. So we actually get to hear a guy like Alex Jones on Joe Rogan's podcast, which is the largest audience out there. Patrick Bet-David, growing audience. I think he's on Crowder almost every week, it seems like.
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit. Some of the other comedians are having him on their shows. So he's getting this big audience, even though the traditional media has basically got rid of him. He can't even share his link to bandvideo.com or whatever that is.
Yeah, band.video.
Or band.video, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. This is a guy that's got a lot of credibility, and once again, a guy that literally the deep state's trying to take out at this point,
Right.
And I think it's more the sins of, being somewhat supportive of Trump's run in 2006.
Right. Yeah. Some people say that, he made Trump and, it obviously had a big influence for, someone who has millions of people listening to him every day on the radio. And especially at that time before he really got canceled, there were tons of people watching and listening to Alex Jones. He had a lot of sway over people and definitely had some influence. But we do have some Rumble rants now.